90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It becomes a podcast later on. My name is Rob Leonard, and joining me as co-host, as always, my brother and award-winning sports writer, Timothy J. Leonard. Hello, Timothy J. How are you?
Good morning, brother. I am outstanding, as usual. How are you?
Of course. I'm doing good. The Islanders, we're going to start off with them. To me, the Islanders right now are the hottest story. Though I was watching Channel 4's sports wrap-up show at 12 o'clock last night, and Bruce Beck thought it was the middle of the show story. But that's just me. They did interview someone from the New York Times. So, but that's okay. But anyway, let's talk about the Islanders. A couple of things have happened since last week. First of all, the Islanders won the last two games of their series against the Bruins, Game 5 and Game 6. Game 6, of course, was at the Nassau Coliseum. It was a very good game. Both games were actually very good until the Islanders got ahead and they got a couple of open nets. Both were tough games, I thought, at least. And of course,
they were all tough games in the playoffs, brother.
Well, you know, some games, I guess. I mean, the barn was a rocking, and that's a good thing. It was really noisy. I mean, when you can't hear the announcers, you know it's pretty, a pretty noisy place. And well, there was even a little thing which I thought was touching. The crowd at Game 6 of the Coliseum was so jacked up that I forgot who the woman who was singing the national anthem. But at one point, she stopped singing, and I thought her mic had gone out because everything works with wireless mics and stuff, and it happens. And it wasn't. She was listening, which was kind of interesting because her job is to sing, not to listen. But it was a very touching moment, and I wonder in Game 3 when it comes back to the Coliseum if it's going to be that boisterous for the Islander fans so that they have to sing every time the the national anthem comes, because it was I don't want to say it was a special thing because it was, but it was it's not something that happens at every game when they sing that. And usually national anthems are sung when at least for American games when they're sung, it's usually something has happened to our country or something, and then everyone's showing their Americanism. So it was nice just to see it. The crowd was so juiced up they just started singing, just for the hell of it. So kind of a nice touch.
Well, they were excited. They were fired up. They were ready to go. By the way, the anthem singer's name was Nicole Revive. That was her name, that is her name. Yes. And I thought she did the right thing. She felt the moment. She felt the excitement and the enthusiasm of the crowd, and
right.
She understood. Let's feature the crowd. Let's get the crowd even more involved. And it wasn't necessarily that she didn't sing. She just allowed the crowd to take over. She continued to sing, but she held the microphone out towards the crowd to encourage them to be louder. They were already being loud, but when the crowd saw what she was doing, they got even louder. And to me, that was the best part of that entire episode was how the volume of the crowd just continued to grow as the song went on, and it really was powerful. I thought it was phenomenal, really, to be honest with you. And I thought Nicole Revive totally got it right and allowed the fans to carry the song. And for me, it was, and in fact, for a lot of people, actually, it was a pure goosebumps kind of a moment. And the thing that I looked at it and that I noticed immediately was, imagine if you are the Boston Bruins and you're standing at the bench, or you have 6 guys standing on the blue line, and they hear this. And this is a moment that you really can't script. This is something that happened. This is something that happened organically, and it happened in the moment. But if you're the Bruins and you hear the fans getting louder and louder and louder during the national anthem, which is usually a formality in most buildings, and not something that fires the fans up, but this for this evening and right before this game, if you're the Bruins, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what it was. Once the song was over, the crowd was already going crazy, and now you got to play a hockey game.
And I'm sure the Islanders.
I thought that was a big boost for the Islanders right there, even before they dropped the puck.
I thought so too, and knowing the history of Islander fans, they tend to arrive for the big games very early. Actually, it's not like they hang out outside a lot. They go inside early and they just start screaming, which is the way you want it to be. I thought games 5 and 6 with the Bruins were great. I was a little worried at one point, but especially after game 5, I had no doubt game 6 was going to be won in the Coliseum. So, I thought it was going to be a tougher game. I really did. I understand what you're saying about at first, because the Bruins did score the first goal it seemed like most of the games. But the second period for the Islanders, they blew Boston out of the building. And yep. it really wasn't even close. But the second period, in a lot of the games, the Islanders were the better team by far in the second period, and the Bruins were trying to rally in the third period and tended to play a better third period than the Islanders did. But the Islanders in so many of the games were so good in the second period that the third period didn't matter. And it was like that in game 5 to a certain extent, because the Islanders had such a big lead, but here comes Boston, and the Islanders wound up hanging on for a 5-4 win. But in game 6, like you said, a couple of empty netters, and by that point, the game was over. And the empty netters were just a little extra chocolate sauce on the sundae, brother. And that was just a more reason for the Coliseum to party, and for the Islanders to come out with the 6-2 win. It was for me, it was a beautiful thing to see, because I love our Boston neighbors. You love Boston. I remember you almost got in a fight once when we were in Boston because you were wearing a Yankee T-shirt, and some drunk Red Sox fan started busting your chops, and we almost got in a fight walking around. I think it was Fenway Park. I think it was.
Would have been worth it.
Of course, it was defending those Yankees. That famous T-shirt you used to have, brother. Remember the one that got so thin that we can see through it? It was
worn, brother. Well worn.
Yes. Only a true fan would wear it continuously the way you did.
Exactly.
And we should say the Islanders yesterday, Sunday, looked, I think, even better against the team that pushed them out of the playoffs last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning, or as their fans call them, the Bolts.
I call them the Ning, brother.
The what?
I call them the Ning.
Yeah, you call them the Ning, but I'm like...
My man Tampa Matt doesn't like that.
The thing, I'm thinking, I'm listening to the game yesterday. I'm driving, and I'm thinking, okay, they've had the Bandits, which was soccer. The Rowdies, which was soccer. They have the Bandits for USFL. They have the Buccaneers. They even have the Tampa Bay Rays, which is an okay name. How do you get Tampa Bay Rays?
The Rays used to be Devil Rays.
You're right, but that's a fish. That's understandable. But how do they get the Lightning? And then they call themselves the Bolts. Let's go Bolts. I mean,
the only thing I can think of with Lightning is it was right around the same time that the Oklahoma City Thunder were born, so that might have had something to do with it. It might have influenced them in some way, but who knows why? Who knows why anybody picks a name? We're going through it right now because the Cleveland Indians are changing their name at some point. We're still waiting for Washington football team to come up with whatever their name is going to be. The Seattle Kraken will start playing hockey next season. So, who knows what goes into these things.
And of course, the MLS has a half the league that doesn't even have real names. So, that's something to think about.
Point that out, brother.
Well, I actually counted the other day because they had the listings in the paper. And I'm like, well, let me see how many names they have here. So I'm going down. Like half the league doesn't have a name. It's either FC. One was called SC. It's for soccer club. At least they're American.
You really need to find a hobby, brother.
I have no hobby. That's my problem.
If that's how bored you are, that you're going through the Major League Soccer standings just to see how many teams have an actual nickname.
They should be happy. Anyway, so Barzal and Pollock. They got the 2 goals yesterday.
Pollock, that's his name. I don't
Pollock. Yeah, be careful how you say that,
Yeah.
Barzal had a great goal, I thought. And you know what? I think this year is going to be a different year for this team, especially after last year. They were all in the bubble up in Edmonton. And, the first game, they flew in the night before. They were exhausted. They lost 8-2 the first game. This is I don't want to say much different team because it's a lot of same players, but there's a different attitude right now because you're playing in your home arenas this year. So.
I mean, that was. But let's talk about the game and just talk about game one.
Sure.
Obviously, it was a stellar defensive effort. Yep. Like you said, Matthew Barzal gets the first goal in the second period. And then Ryan Pollock winds up getting giving the Islanders a 2-0 lead a few minutes into the third period. I tell you what, Pollock is a really good player, and I was amazed, especially considering how heavy his slap shot is, that the Lightning not only gave him so much time at the blue line, but they also gave him space, and they allowed him to kind of creep in a few more feet. He was a good 10 feet or so inside the blue line when he let that shot go. And I tell you what, the guy's got he shoots a cannon. And he obviously, they, for whatever reason, don't give him enough credit for his shot, but I'll tell you what, Andre Vasilevsky for the Lightning, I think he's going to tell his guys, hey, make sure you cover this guy next time, because he sizzled a slap shot past him, and it hit Vasilevsky, and it looked like the inside of the left pad, because it took a deflection just before it went into the goal. It hit off something on him, but it looked like it hit the inside of his left pad, and he beat him 5-hole with it. That means he's got a powerful shot if you're beating a goalie 5-hole with a point slap shot. So it was those 2 goals, obviously big. The defense was obviously fantastic. Semyon Varlamov, the Islanders goalie, stopped 30 of 31 shots. Steven Stamkos, the real star player, one of the real star players for the Lightning, had 1 shot. Nikita Kucherov, also 1 shot. So that's their two top guys. And the Lightning didn't get a goal until the final minute of the game, until they pulled Vasilevsky and got the extra skater, which led to a final minute of
there's
nervousness.
Also a penalty also, so it's 6-on-4.
Right. So
how do you not get it?
Well, I mean, it's almost like a 5-on-3. So you put that many bodies out there and that many guys who are uncovered, and chances are you're going to score a goal. But I did want to point out that here's the difference between last year and this year, and here's how much one game can set a tone in a playoff series. And I don't know how many people actually remember this from last season's playoffs. The Islanders had to win a Game 7 against the Philadelphia Flyers in the bubble in Toronto.
Right.
Then they had to fly from Toronto to Edmonton. And I know that is a cross-country flight for those of you who don't necessarily know your Canadian geography. That is going 3 time zones. It's like going from New York to California. It's a long flight. All right. And then they play game 1 less than 48 hours after what was probably the most emotionally draining win in that the franchise had in at least a decade, if not more. Right. Remember, before last season, this is not a team that had really any kind of any kind of real success in the playoffs for a very long time.
Yeah.
So there was no way the Islanders were going to win game one. In fact, I probably said that last year. I remember talking about that game. But basically, there was no way the Islanders were going to win that game. Less than 48 hours after this massive win, now the Islanders are going to play a Stanley Cup semifinal, and they have to fly across country, basically get no rest because your 1 day off is spent on a flight. Then you have like 1 day to prepare for what was at that point probably the best team in hockey. So, thanks NHL for that. And the final score of that game was 8-2. And that, to me, that was more about poor scheduling and the circumstances that the NHL forced the Islanders to endure than it was about the Islanders being an inferior club. So there was none of that this season. And what do we have as a result? The Islanders are now up 1-0 with game 2 on Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
If the Islanders win that one, brother, imagine how loud the Coliseum is going to be tomorrow night.
Well, I was there, Toronto game 3 back in 2002 with our friend Rob Tuck, and it is still burned in my brain as we're walking at 6:35. The game starts at 7 o'clock, and there's no one outside the Coliseum. And we're like, where is everyone? At least we're scalpers.
Oh, you sure you're there on the right night, brother?
Yeah, well, that's what we're thinking. And as we get closer to the Coliseum, we're outside, and we could hear the yelling. That's how loud it was. And I'd heard from a friend who was at that game that they were going since like 6 o'clock. And I assume that, game 3 will be very similar to that loudness because the Coliseum, has that low ceiling. And, this week, by the way, brother, this is it's off topic, but it continues my obsession with the UBS Arena. Gary Bettman, everyone's favorite commissioner.
Not really, but he's probably even less popular than what's his name for the NFL?
Roger Goodell?
Goodell, yeah. Probably even less popular.
Well, Bettman was at the UBS Arena this week with the Islanders ownership and some other people to approve the new arena that is happening in Elmont. And
now?
Yeah. Well,
he's pretty much done.
I know
going to approve.
Well, he wants to, he wants to be the guy who thinks that he's the reason why the Islanders have a new arena, and he has nothing to do with it because even let's say there was no arena in Elmont. Let's say our great governor Mario Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo doesn't set it up to put the arena in Elmont at Belmont Park. You know what? The Islanders would still be playing at the Coliseum. Yes, they would probably have to put more seats and they'd probably get up to 15,000, which is still not a bad arena. But you know what? The Islanders would then sue the NHL for not allowing them to play there. And, that was the main thing that Bettman kept saying. Well, we have to approve all this move back from Brooklyn. And just be quiet, Gary. Just, he's been around way too long and he's no David Stern. So he'll say otherwise, but I don't know. So
I don't think he would say it. I would hope that he would have enough self-awareness as a commissioner of a league to realize that he's not very popular.
Yeah,
make some better decisions. I don't, that to me is if you look at commissioners, all right, Adam Silver on the NBA is a fairly popular commissioner. He's not way up there. Like David Stern became probably the most popular commissioner.
Yeah.
Anybody who was running baseball, chances are they're not very well liked. Although, Rob Manfred is certainly much more well liked than Bud Selig was. But because obviously Bud Selig was an ownership shill. But if you look at commissioners, their job isn't necessarily to be liked because chances are most teams will feel at some point that the commissioner did their team wrong. But
right.
Gary Bettman is really he's not a well liked man.
Every year I love when they bring out the Stanley Cup and he comes out with it. and the crowd boos him. I just love it. It's not just the Islanders or the Devils fans when they're happy with especially when the Devils almost moved, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I think the Devils could move." The Devil fans destroyed him, but every city sends to destroy him. Anyway, brother, I want to get this in before other things because of the of what happened to him. Christian Eriksen was, he's a soccer player. Those guys are in the best shape. And he falls on the field.
They run a lot, brother.
That's all they do, really.
Miles,
play soccer,
miles are running.
And what happens to him? He just all of a sudden falls, and you start thinking other things along the way. And how's he doing, by the way? What's up?
It was a very scary moment, brother. I don't know if you were watching the Euro 2020 tournament like you said you were going to, but. Of course, this was an early game, and it was frightening. It was frightening. It was disturbing. It was a lot of things, but mainly right now today on June 14th, I think we can all be happy that Christian Eriksen is just alive.
Right,
because he is also a midfielder. Besides playing for Inter Milan now, and also previously playing for my Tottenham Hotspur, Christian Eriksen is Danish. He's a midfielder for the Denmark national team. He is basically to Denmark what Christian Pulisic is to the United States. He's their main guy. He's like the face of the nation in a lot of regards. But he was if you were just watching the game, you saw he was moving toward a ball. One of his teammates was throwing it in late in the first half in a game against Finland in what was they're still calling the Euro 2020 because it was supposed to happen last year, but because of the pandemic it didn't. But they're still calling it the Euro 2020. So as Eriksen was kind of moving toward the ball or towards the man, he kind of stumbled a little bit. It didn't look natural. But then the ball just kind of hit off his leg, and you could tell, or I could tell, that he didn't even try to make a play on it. The ball just hit him.
Right.
And as it hit him, he was already falling down, and he hit the ground hard with no effort to catch himself, with no effort to stop his fall in any way, and the ball just bounced away, and no player was close to him, so there was no reason for him to fall. So from all of that, it was kind of obvious that, hey, something's really wrong here, because there's no reason for a 29-year-old who is in top physical condition to just keel over on the field like this. So, but you don't really understand it in the moment. Here's Christian Eriksen. But at that moment, as he fell down, he's in cardiac arrest. So a few things happened that make this a happy story instead of a sad story. Number one is while he is face down on the pitch, and this is something you have to remember, is that he's face down on the pitch, and in that moment, he's dying because his heart isn't beating. Right. One of his teammates, and apparently this guy is probably his best friend on the team as well, was their captain, a guy by the name of Simon Kier, basically helped save his life because he saw Eriksen, he saw what was going on, and immediately recognized what was going on. Obviously, he had CPR training in his life at some point, but he put him in what they call a recovery position. And what that does, it allows the victim, the patient, whatever you want to call him, to not swallow his tongue, among other things, and to be able to receive CPR. So he does this, and he sees his friend is in trouble, and everybody starts waving medical people onto the field. But the other thing is the referee stopped the game within seconds, which again helps save his life because seconds matter in situations like this. So here come the medical teams. Here come doctors. I mean, a bunch of people came onto the field because several people understood what was going on in that moment, and knew they didn't have many seconds to spare. So, the medical staff got onto the field. Not long after that, I'm watching and I see this, and you see some pretty aggressive CPR going on. And that was when I knew this is like, I don't know for a fact what's going on here, because you don't expect like cardiac arrest during a game. It's very rare that it happens. It has happened before. There was a player named Fabrice Muamba, who I can't remember who he played for, but he actually, the same thing happened to him when they were playing against Tottenham in, I believe it was an FA Cup game, almost 10 years ago. So here's Christian Eriksen getting CPR, and then the Denmark team doctor actually confirmed after the fact that they had used a defibrillator to shock Eriksen's heart back into rhythm.
Right.
Now they do that because it's not beating. And that's what was going on. And that same doctor, he said in a like they did a Zoom call with him the day after, and he said, look, to put it blunt, he was gone. He was technically dead.
Right.
And yes, it might have been, for whatever, 30 seconds. And plenty of people have been shocked back to life, and that it's in situations where there's a happy ending because they live. But if your heart's not beating for 30 seconds, technically, yes, you are dead. So, the kind of strange part of this for me, I don't even necessarily want to say the happy part, but I guess it is a happy part, is that a couple hours later, because they called the game off, there was about 4 minutes left in the first half when this happened. Right. But they said, look, we're not going to play the rest of the game because we want to find out what's going on, and it's too much for the Denmark team. But Eriksen actually did a FaceTime call with his teammates, and he told them, look, hey, I'm worried about you guys. Like, what's going on? How are you guys feeling? I'm doing okay. I'm fine. I'm in the hospital, and things are good. So I want you to play the rest of the game. And they wound up playing the game, and Finland actually got a goal and wound up winning the game. Okay. But the other thing that is up in the air at this point, like I said, great thing that Christian Eriksen is just alive and is able to figure out what his future is going to be. But what we don't know, and what we'll find out in the coming weeks and months, I guess, is whether Christian Eriksen's career is over, or whether surgery can repair whatever the issues are that caused his heart to stop. Because right now we don't know. I mean, we know is there was a cardiac arrest that Christian Eriksen managed to survive a very scary moment. But if there's a possibility that this can happen again, if they can't repair whatever is wrong, then his career is over. Because you can't go out on a soccer field if there's the possibility your heart. Of course.
Hopefully they figure out what happened. So I mean, it's a weird way to end your career. You almost died.
Right.
Anyway,
again, it kind of highlights or spotlights that what a lot of these athletes say, and I know that some people look at it and say when like an NFL player says, "Well, your career can be over in one moment," and Christian Eriksen had a moment.
Well, with football players, you can, your leg breaks or,
But this is that same sort of scenario situation that one minute you're playing a game and then the next minute you're down on the turf and you have no idea what your future is.
Joe Theismann.
That's the fragility of professional sports.
Joe Theismann.
Exactly.
Anyway, you're listening to 90.3 WHPC. The voice of Nassau Community College. This is From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The show becomes a podcast later on nccradio.org, which is where you can stream us, but also in other places like iHeartRadio and Spotify, all the friendly places for podcasts. We are part of the WHPC Sports Talk family, which is sports talk every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., with an additional show Tuesday from 10 p.m. to midnight. So, we want to tune in for any other sports on the station. We all the shows here are really good. And also, this hour of from the press box is brought to you by Steve Mandracina and Everything and Anything. Join Steve every Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., right before Beatles songs, as he tries to play everything and anything within a 2-hour show. So please give Steve a listen, among other people here at the radio station.
Who's that guy that does Beatles songs, brother?
Oh, that's me. Every Friday, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Nice.
Anyway, the Nets, who started out 2-0 against the Bucks, are now tied 2-2. And
it's been such a weird series.
It has been, because you really expected the Nets. I thought the Nets were going to really dominate this. I'm like, okay, the Nets are going to really destroy the Bucks. And now it's tied, and I'm a little worried about the Nets because can they stay healthy? I mean,
you should be a lot worried about the Nets, brother.
I know.
I would like to say, before we get into the Nets, NHL and NBA, can you guys get together? We had the other day, yesterday, the Nets and the Islanders playing on the same day at the same time. All right. It's happening again on Tuesday.
Right.
Why is this happening?
Well,
this is ridiculous.
I agree with you.
Why are you forcing teams? All right. First of all, does anybody at the NBA or NHL know that the Nets and the Islanders have shared a home twice? Why are you making fans choose?
Well, I think part of it, brother, is I don't know if it's me, but I think the games are closer together. It used to be 3 games apart, especially in the NBA. It used to be 3 days apart, I should say.
I get it, but
now it's 2, which is the way it should be.
They should have started one series the day after. Then they should have figured out a way that the games weren't going to be scheduled on the same days at the same times. And somebody should have said, "Hey, look, we got all these fans in New York. We'll probably want to watch both games." And we're not going to let them do it.
Well, that's true, but I think this is something also to think about. Next year, ESPN and ABC pick up the NHL contract. So you're going to see more of a combined effort to maybe separate some games, because ESPN and ABC also own the NBA contract, especially during the playoffs. So that might be a thing where they all sit down and say, okay, let's try not to have 2 New York teams at 8:00 on a Tuesday, where we'd like to have one of each, But then again,
common sense, bro.
The Islanders played yesterday, Tim, at 3:00 in the afternoon. I would have preferred it to be the primetime game, but it wasn't. That's just part of the way it is. I mean, one of the games last week with the Bruins was like at 6:30 or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, because they had a West Coast game they were going to show also. So
right.
I understand what you're talking about, but I also know that technically they're 2 separate leagues, and they
I get that, but
and sometimes it's like that.
Yeah, but I get it. But the Islanders tomorrow start at 8:00, and the Nets will be starting at 8:30.
Right. That's
at home.
Those are too late. Those are too late, man.
In Brooklyn, you're starting a game at 8:30. That's absurd.
No, that's way too late. Nope, I agree. I agree with that. That's something else. Personally, I think all the games should start at like 7 or 7:30. Obviously, there's some other games going on, or there's another TV show on. Maybe there's something there too. But that's what I would do. I mean, to me, that is what you want. You don't want the East Coast games to start too late, because then you can't. You fall asleep, or you have to wake up early in the morning, or whatever. So, they're both going to be good games. So it's
obviously I would like to be able to watch both of them. That's how good they're going to be.
Right.
But
so
I won't get that chance unless I buy a second television set.
Well, if you have picture-in-picture, you can do it.
I don't think I do. Sadly.
I used to have it. I don't know if I have it anymore.
I don't know how many televisions actually have that anymore.
Well, it's always a nice thing.
Anyway, brother, going back to the series.
It's a 2-2 against the Bucks.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, the first 2 games were, for the most part, just Nets crushing the Bucks. The games weren't even close.
Nope.
Now they go back. So basically the Nets held serve. They did what they were supposed to do, and they looked very impressive while they were doing it. I don't know that anybody necessarily expected the same thing to happen in reverse when they went back to Milwaukee. But here we are. And, when you look at what is going on with the Nets now, James Harden played, 40-something seconds of this series. In game one, he was injured in the first minute of the game, and he has not played since because of hamstring injury. Now, Kyrie Irving played all of 17 minutes in game four and was sprained his right ankle. He came down on Giannis's foot and had to leave the game. And reports were that he was on crutches and in a walking boot. So I don't know what's going to happen, but the result of that was Mike James seeing significantly more minutes. Now, Mike James is a nice player and a good guy to have off the bench to give you some minutes and to give your starters a blow. But Mike James isn't Kyrie Irving or James Harden.
No, he isn't.
For the Nets, and we've talked about this before with the Nets. If they have a phenomenal big three with Harden, Irving, and Kevin Durant, and if one of those guys gets hurt, the team can overcome it because there's two more of those guys, two more all-star caliber players. I don't know that the Nets have had, and if they did, it was maybe for one or two games, but they really haven't had a situation where both of these guys were hurt at the same time, both point guards, Irving and Harden. So there's only so much Kevin Durant is going to be able to do on his own. And that's kind of where we are right now, because Kevin Durant is going to have to do a lot, and somebody, whether it's Harden or Irving, is going to have to try, come back from injury, because if it doesn't happen, the Nets are going to be done, because Milwaukee certainly is good enough to beat them. And we've seen that over the last two games. Milwaukee, it was a very defensive game in game three. The Bucks won 86-83. And then yesterday, the Bucks came away with a 107-96 win. Due in large part to Irving leaving the game in the second quarter, and the Nets were never able to get close the rest of the way. But when you take a big three and you take it down to a big one, everybody's got a big one.
If Kyrie Irving landed on someone's ankle, basically, or
landed on Giannis's foot. And his ankle bent pretty badly.
Usually you've really hurt yourself if you land that way, because it's so uneven and you're not used to it.
Right.
We've seen a lot of
That's how sprained ankles happen in the NBA.
Right.
Every game, or not every game, many games. That's the leading cause for sprained ankles in the NBA. Is you land on somebody's foot, your foot goes sideways, and you if you're in an NBA, you probably weigh more than 200 pounds, so you got 200 pounds of force plus coming down on your ankle. It's not a recipe for good health. But
no, it's not.
The Nets right now are in a situation where they need a big performance on Tuesday, and they're also in a situation where they need James Harden to get healthy in a hurry, because I think Kyrie is probably going to miss at least a game or two, and the Nets don't have a game or two at this point. If they two games and their season is over, and their quest for the title is over, and I know it's not. It's in no way similar to what we were just talking about with fragility of athletics, but here we are again with a couple of key injuries, and that can end the season. And when you lose a significant player like Kyrie Irving, it shows how difficult it is to win a championship, because health is one of those things that a team desperately needs to win a title. And a lot of times it'll come down to whatever team has the best health to win the title. And right now, the Nets have been a little bit snake bit, especially in this series. I mean, you lose two of your best three players within a 4-game span, And that's, again, not a recipe for winning a title.
No, and
we're going to see what happens in Game 5, because I'll tell you what, Kevin Durant is going to have to show how much of a great player he is, because he's going to need to have a big game, and he's going to better even more so. He's going to need to have an efficient game. You know, he was 9 for 25 in Game 4. 36% shooting isn't going to cut it in Game 5. He's going to need to shoot in the 50 to 60% range, and he really is going to have to carry the Brooklyn Nets to a win, and somebody else is going to have to step up, whether that's Joe Harris or Blake Griffin or one of the reserves. Somebody else is going to have to take on a significant amount of the weight of that team and help Kevin Durant, because he's not going to be able to do it by himself against a team that's as talented as the Milwaukee Bucks.
No, I agree. We'll see what happens. And that's, it's no one ever talks about the other people on the Nets except for, you have the 3 stars, and then no one's really talked about the rest of the team all year. I mean, so it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before. I mean, obviously Joe Harris is one of those guys. He's going to play big minutes, but he needs shots. And when you look at Game 4 is kind of an aberration, because the Nets were they emptied the bench early. It wasn't like you could look at Game 4 numbers and say that has anything to do with anything, because like I said, the bench was emptied early. Everybody played. So when you look at what the Nets are going to do, Blake Griffin and Joe Harris need to have big games, and Bruce Brown, assuming he starts, he's another guy that needs to have a decent game. But Mike James probably will be the key guy for the Nets, because if he doesn't step up to the moment and help this team, then chances are the Bucks are going to win. And if the Bucks win Game 5, the series is over.
I agree. Okay, bro, let's talk about the Mets. They are still in first place, 32-25. They took 2 out of 3 from the Padres. Jacob deGrom is okay.
The Grommer.
We hope so, and we think so. He did.
He says he's okay. I'm trusting the Grommer on this one, brother. I'm just going to keep calling him the Grommer for the rest of the season, I think.
Well, I'm not sure other Met fans would appreciate that, but one thing I think about him is was the last game or the game before where he went 7 innings and then said, why not go 8? And he said, well, my arm is hurting. No one ever said anything. What do you mean your arm is hurting? And then the next game he sort of comes out. So I sometimes worry about him, because when you throw over 100 all the time, I think it's not the best thing for your arm. And
this for my brother, who's always wants pitchers to pitch more, not less.
But I don't need them to pitch 102 miles per hour. I can see them pitching 97, or throwing a curveball or a changeup or a palm ball or something. I don't know, or folly floater or whatever you want to call the pitch. So
I don't think anybody throws a palm ball anymore, brother.
But wouldn't it be great if they did? Folly floater was always my favorite name.
That's called an ephus pitch, brother. A couple of pitchers still throw that.
Well, the Scroogey.
I don't even know what that is.
I think that was I want to say it was a Tug McGraw pitch, but I'm not sure.
It was probably a screwball, and he just called it Scroogey for whatever reason.
Yeah, it probably was. So anyway, the Met fans, of course, every win or lose, they're on Luis Rojas's case. He screwed something up here. Well, you know what? First of all, they're not going to win every game. Second of all, I think Luis Rojas has been doing very good actually this year. Considering the Mets at one point didn't have, I think, a starter on the field at one point. It was just, this is a pretty good team right now. Now, mind you, the NL East is a horrible division compared to the NL West. And, will they get out of the first round of the playoffs when the playoffs come around? Whoever is from the NL East, we don't know. But the Mets right now are in first place, and that's really all I care about right now. So,
well, I'm going to stop you there for a second, brother, because I'm going to say something that I know Met fans are going to be outraged by, because Met fans are outraged by pretty much everything. But as far as I'm concerned, right now,
most importantly, Yankee fans.
Right now, 55, 60 games into the season, Luis Rojas is my manager of the year. He's done a phenomenal job with the Mets.
I know.
The Mets have had all kinds of injuries. So many guys have gotten hurt. And Francisco Lindor, your $300 million shortstop, or excuse me, $42 million shortstop?
Yep.
Can't hit. The man can't hit. He's batting about 200. Yet Luis Rojas has the Mets 7 games over 500. He's 3 games ahead of the Phillies, 5 games ahead of the Braves, 7.5 games ahead of the Nationals, and the Mets look ready to pull away. Yes, the division is crap. Who cares? The Mets are putting space between themselves and the division, and that's all that matters.
Yes, I agree. Space
in between yourselves and the teams that are chasing you. Luis Rojas is the manager of the year. This reminds me of the job that Aaron Boone did with the Yankees a couple of years ago, when the Yankees seemed like they were losing a player almost every day. And they had half of Scranton up playing, and we found out who Mike Tauchman was, and Luke Voigt was about the only guy that was staying healthy, and we still didn't know who Luke Voigt was. And oh, by the way, here's Gio Urshela, who's like a 210 lifetime hitter, and all of a sudden becomes a 300 hitter with power out of nowhere off the scrap heap. That's what Luis Rojas is doing with the Mets right now. He's got guys on the roster that don't belong in the major leagues. His bullpen has injuries. His rotation has big injuries. Carlos Carrasco, who the Mets got from the Indians in the offseason, has yet to start a game for the Mets. He was supposed to be their third starter. Has not started a game. Luis Rojas is doing a great job. And if any Mets fan doesn't think he's doing a great job, then that guy doesn't know baseball. Because the Mets should not be in first place right now. They shouldn't even be close to first place.
No, they should. Yet
they are in first place and putting space between themselves and the rest of an admittedly poor division.
Well, usually space is made right before the All-Star break, and then afterwards is when you take away. And that's, for many years the Mets would, get to the All-Star break and then they just fall apart. Now, right now they're beating their projection, at least for me. So I'm very happy about this.
Yeah, they just took 2 out of 3 from the Padres, who were supposed to be one of the best 2 teams in baseball.
Yes.
And before that they were in San Diego and they split a 4-game series. So the Mets are 4-3 in 7 games with San Diego. There's nothing wrong with that. And now, now we're looking at a segment of the schedule coming up. All right. The Mets start a series with the Chicago Cubs tonight. David Peterson, who needs to figure it out in a hurry, is starting for the Mets tonight. But after that, 4 against Washington, 4 against the Braves, 4 against the Phillies, then 1 game against Washington, I guess is a makeup game for a rainout, then 3 against Atlanta, and then you go out of the division. You got New York, the Yankees, the Brewers, and the Pirates. But that from now through July 1st, the Mets are playing division games, other than the 4-game series with Chicago. So for the next 2+ weeks, the Mets will be playing their division. That's the time when you pick up ground. That's the time when you put some distance between you and the other teams. If the Mets can come out of that with a decent amount of wins, then all of a sudden by July 1st, we're going to be talking about how the Mets are 6 games in front. Or maybe 7 games in front, because they can do the damage that they need to do. They don't have to rely on other teams. They don't have to win games. They'll be beating the teams behind them.
No, I agree, and I think that this next 2 weeks against the interdivision is going to be fantastic for the Mets, and I think they're going to really do well. I think it's going to be a great 2 weeks for the Mets. I think they're going to be up even more, I think, than what you're saying. So I'm very happy about this. Brother, we're running out of time. The Yankees are 5-13 in the last 18 games.
Yes, but I'm glad you read the show notes this week. That was good.
Yeah, well, one thing about the Yankees, brother, 5-13 last 18 games.
Terrible.
If the ghost of George Steinbrenner could return, and yell at these guys, he would.
If the ghost of George Steinbrenner could come back, the first thing he would do is fire Aaron Boone, brother. Let's face facts.
He might fire Hal Steinbrenner. What are you talking about?
There'd be a lot of firings.
There'd be a lot of firings.
George would be shaking things up right now. I've said this in previous shows last week, the week before. The Yankees, they're having issues hitting, and this week they lit up the Twins for 8 runs and 9 runs in consecutive wins. And that's the good news. And the bad news is they looked awful in losing 2 games to the Phillies. They came back. They came back in the first game. They scored 4 runs in the 8th and 9th innings. One run in the 8th, and DJ LeMahieu had a 3-run home run in the 9th. Tied the game up 7-7, and then they lost the game in the 10th inning because of that stupid runner on second rule and that all of that stupidity. And then yesterday, Aaron Nola was phenomenal, as you expect Aaron Nola to be for the Phillies. And the Yankees lose 7-0 because Jameson Taillon pitched 1/3 of an inning, 4 runs. Couldn't get more than 1 out. And here comes Nestor Cortez to have to pitch 5 innings because Jameson Taillon just keeps giving up batting practice singles. So it was a very short day. Taillon, I've been defending him because I think, the guy's been out for an extended period. He had a second Tommy John surgery, had to remake his delivery entirely in an attempt to stay healthy. But he's got to figure it out because he's more bad than good at this point. And I know, like I said, we're 55, 60 games into the season. We're only talking about maybe a dozen starts, but he's got to figure it out because the Yankees can't get less than 5 innings from him pretty much every time he starts. It's killing the bullpen. It means it's a loss pretty much every time he starts. And Corey Kluber's not here again. He's not here right now, and he's not going to be back for at least a month and a half. Right. They need Jameson Taillon to be a reliable guy in a positive way, and they need it to happen ASAP. And whether or not that is going to happen, we don't know.
Yeah, right now there's so much happening in New York that the Yankees not doing well is not the big story. So, you got the playoffs going with the Islanders and the Nets, and the Mets are doing well. And so right now the Yankees, who let's be honest, is the big story all the time. 5-13 within the last 18 games can't do. Anyway, brother.
Right, but the big story with the Yankees this week, brother, was Garrett Cole being asked the question about the spider tack.
Okay.
And him pausing for an extended time, like he was trying to pretend the Zoom call froze. And then he said, "Well, I don't know how to answer that question. It was a bad look."
You should have said that, brother, about 10 minutes ago. Well, anyway, that doesn't look good. Spider tack is what, for those who don't know, brother?
It is used by weightlifters to get a better grip on the bar for when they're picking up hundreds of pounds, and it has been incorporated by Major League Baseball pitchers to get a better grip on the baseball, which increases what they call spin rates and creates more break on pitches.
Isn't that kind of illegal?
It's harder to see than pine tar. Let's put it that way. So if you can't see it, you don't know it's there.
Or is it like sticking with the? Is it like sticking with the?
It's just like it's like it says tack. So it's tacky. So it just it gives you a little bit better grip, and that's that gets you more spin rate.
Okay, then one more thing. Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau of the Knicks. I wrote down Rowe for some reason.
Yes, NBA Coach of the Year.
Yep.
Very, very well-deserved honor for Coach Tibbs. I was very happy for him.
Anyway, we should say Euro 2020 or 2021, is it, or 2020?
2020. They're going 2020. I don't know why, but they are.
It's happening right now, but we've run out of time. Anyway, brother, another good show. Glad we were able to get you back. You've been listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College, from the press box every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and becomes a podcast later on. Remember, sports talk during the week, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and then, of course, every Tuesday, 10 p.m. to midnight. Thanks to Sean Novat for keeping us on the air. And coming up next is Big Ed with the Good Gold Show. So keep it tuned here to WHPC. Take care and bye-bye.